I was born to a teenage mother who at the age of 14, she had given birth to her first child. At age 16, she gave birth to my brother, my twin brother and I. And by the time she was 20 years old, she had 5 children and had been married twice. Needless to say, my mother dropped out of school to take care of her children. So she didn't have a lot of formal education. But I'll say my mother had a PhD in streetology. The woman knew how to make money, she knew how to hustle. I grew up as a troubled child. I was a troubled child, always in trouble, in and out of juvenile, getting suspended from schools. And at the age of 6, the first time I ran away from home. So my mother's boyfriend, he was a drug dealer. He was very abusive. And since I stayed in so much trouble, I was often the object of his abuse. So at age 6, I remember going to the store, and my brother then was hollering out the store. My mother sent me to the store to get some bread. And this was a store that used to give my mother credit because we was on welfare. So they would give her credit until she get her food stamps at the first of the month. But my twin brother was hollering, give me something too, because I would go in this store and steal all the time, right? And so I go into the store and I get my little powdered donuts and things like that. And my mother, she heard my brother say that. And you can look out on our back porch and you can look straight up over to the store and you can see the store in direct sight. So when I was walking back from the store eating my donuts, I had my brother cookies in my pocket, I'm eating my donut, my mother called me Red. I look up and I'm startled. I take the donuts and I throw them up under the bushes as though she wasn't gonna see me. I come home, she say, what the hell you been doing? I say, nothing. She grabbed me by my neck and took me to the mirror. I had white powder all on my face. I had forgot to wipe my face off, right? She said, she marched me right back up to the store. And because this man had been so nice to us, giving us credit until she get her food stamps at the first of the month, she made me apologize to the man and everything. And we got home, she got a wire clothes hanger, and she opened up. She said, I'm finna beat your... I said, oh man. Fate intervened and she had to go pee. She used the bathroom. She went to the bathroom, I went out the back door. And I was going through the alley. I'm like, she ain't finna hit me with no coat hanger. I'm gone. I had been used to getting abused like that, right? So I'm running. I'm in the street, I'm 6 years old. I leave, this about 8:30 in the morning. I stay out all day. I go to local stores. I literally eat dinner in stores. I got juice in this aisle, opened up. I got cookies in this aisle, opened up. I open up bread, and I'm going out each aisle, eating my food in the store, so they can't say I'm stealing. What the evidence say? I done ate everything. So I leave this store, I'm walking through the street, I go past what we call the host road in St. Louis, where the pimps and the prostitutes hung out there. I was fascinated with the street life. 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm going into a liquor store, finna go in there and steal again. And I see the man behind the counter, and he looked at me and he disappeared, so I'm like, I'm finna go. I got a bag of chips. And I see somebody grab me like this. He grabbed the back of my collar and I kind of lifted up. He said, boy, they been looking for you. I go in on the news. I was all on the news. Like, we were looking at a 6-year-old boy, he missing and everything. So the man, he was nice. He gave me the chips free, gave me some juice. He called my mother and them, called the police. My mother came in the police car down to the liquor store. And she seen me, she just hugged me and she cried. She said, oh my God, I thought you was dead. I was gone all day from 8 a.m. to 3 a.m. the next morning at 6 years of age. I kept getting in trouble. It didn't stop. I kept on getting in trouble, kicked up out of school, suspended here. By the age of 14 years old, I wound up stealing some of my mother's drugs, snorting dope. In high school, they called me snorting dope. They wound up putting me into a drug rehabilitation center for teens. I go into the drug rehabilitation center, that was the first time that they told me I was a CD alcoholic. I was chemically dependent, that's what they told me. I was a CD alcoholic. And they said you was dependent on drugs, and I just snorted a little bit. I thought I was Scarface. I was seeing the movie, I wanted to be a gangster. I thought if I snorted some dope, I could have some guns, have some women. I didn't think I was no drug addict or nothing. It just 1 or 2 times I've done that, right? But I was in the drug rehab and had just got up out of juvenile 3 weeks prior to that. Well, when I got out of drug rehab, one of my uncles, he gave me a cassette tape of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And that tape had really affected my thinking. Now, during this time, I had seen psychotherapists, I had seen counselors. My mother took me to a mental hospital because she said, this boy got to be crazy as hell because I whooped his butt. He do the same thing tomorrow that I just beat him for yesterday. So in her mind, I was insane. So she took me to a mental hospital. So I had seen all these counselors and everything, but what the minister said on that tape affected me. It affected my thinking. It didn't make me change all of a sudden, but it affected my thinking. So I'm steady in and out of trouble again. By the time I'm 16 years old, I wind up getting into a lot of trouble. And I'm facing 50 years to life in penitentiary. And they wind up giving me, I had 48 years total, and they combined it all to a 10-year sentence. So I went to prison at the age of 17, maximum security prison, and didn't get out till I was 24 years old. During that time, I spent 48 months in solitary confinement, 6 different penitentiaries, and I seen the most horrific things that you can ever imagine happen to young people. When I went to prison, in maximum security prison in Missouri at that time, it was only 3 or 4 guys under 21 years old, young black men, that was in maximum security prison, and I was one of them. When I got out 7 years later, probably 60% of everybody coming in was 18, 19, some of them 14, 15 years old, because gang violence and drugs had saturated the community. Well, when I was in prison, I became robotic. So, you know, my mother, if your daughter got pregnant at a young age, hell, call Cherry. She knew exactly what to do about it. She was an OG at getting pregnant. She had 5 children by the age of 20. And I also like to joke to say, if your electricity got cut off, call Cherry. That woman know how to cut your electricity back on. My mother was the go-to person in the hood. But when I got locked up, my mother wasn't there for me. I used to collect calls from the Department of Correction. Click. Damn, this my mom. I write letters. Never got a response. I'm calling again, collect call from the Department of Click. I'm like, damn, why mom ain't answer? I grew up seeing you there for everybody. So I grew a bitter hatred towards my own mother, and I became robotic. If my mother would have been killed by a serial killer when I was locked up, if she'd have been chopped up and eaten by Jeffrey Dahmer, if I would have cried, and that's a big if, I would have cried because my logic tell me to cry. Logic would tell me, that's your mother, you should feel something. But emotionally, I was disconnected from everybody on the outside world because the person I relied on most wasn't there for me. So I go through all these trials and tribulations in penitentiary, and then when I come out, my mother and my little brother come pick me up from prison. And it was an awkward moment. I remember walking out of prison, I was happy to be free, but my mother was there who I grew a hatred for. I don't even like you no more because I called you and you didn't answer. I wrote you and you didn't respond back. So in my mind, I don't even like you, but you my mother, and I'm happy to be out, right? So that car ride home from prison, it was very awkward. I'm looking at birds, I'm looking at dogs, and I remember we stopped at a gas station, and I ain't seen a dog in years, and I'm like, this was like a Rottweiler or something. He like looking at me like, dude, but I just want to see a dog, you know? And so we get home, and over the years, after I got out, my mother, I found out that she was struggling with crack addiction. Right? And so she was in and out of rehab, which I didn't know that. I went to prison knowing the strong Cherry, the one that was there for everybody, the one that carried pistols, the one that would fight people. I didn't know the crack addicted, crackhead Cherry. I didn't know that woman right there. But when I came home, I realized that she was struggling with drug addiction. I heard the stories from my other brothers and them and my sister that she was struggling with drug addiction. So over the years, the hatred was still on the inside of me. And I remember one time I heard a lecture from, again, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan talking about atonement. And he said that if somebody do you wrong, go to that person, point out the wrong, and to correct it, where you won't have that hatred and that bitterness on your heart. And I remember calling my mama after I heard the minister say that. I said, Mom, I want to come talk to you. And I remember going to my mama's house, and I'll never forget this day. She was frying some chicken. She had some macaroni and cheese and some rice. I'm thinking to myself, damn, do I tell her before I get my plate or after I get my plate what's on my heart, right? And then, but I tell her, I say, Mama, what's up? She gave me a kiss. She said, what's going on, babe? I said, I want to talk to you. She said, what's going on? I say, Mama, I hate you. My mother looked at me. She put her hands on that skillet of grease, that hot chicken, and in her mind, now this Cherry from the hood that'll go upside your head, carry pistols. And I said, hold on, because in my mind, she had to kind of look like, I don't know if my son had lost his damn mind, but he come up in the trip, I and throw this hot grease in his face and bust his head with this cast iron skillet. That's how the look she had on her face. I said, hold on, let me tell you why. I said, Mom, when I got locked up, you wasn't there. I called you, you didn't answer my calls. I wrote you, you didn't respond to me. Mom, I needed you. Damn, you was my mother. I sent you there for everybody in the hood. You put your life on the line for everybody. But when I called you, you wasn't there. But what my mother said to me blew my damn mind. My mother looked at me with tears in her eyes, and she said, son, when you got locked up, it wasn't nothing I can do about it. I called lawyers, people in the street connections, was nothing getting you up out of that. You was going to penitentiary. And because I wasn't the most religious person, I didn't start praying. I started smoking crack to escape the pain of what I thought my son was about to go through. She said, I didn't know if I was gonna ever see you again, if you was gonna get killed up in that place or die in that place. I didn't know if I was gonna ever see you. So to escape that pain, I started smoking crack. And so here I am thinking that all these years, I feel vindicated and justified of my pain and my anger. I supposed to feel like this, damn it. You my mother, you wasn't there for me. I should feel this pain, I should feel this anger. You wasn't there. And she telling me that one of the contributing factors of her becoming a straight up crackhead was trying to escape the pain of my little delinquent thug type behavior, and that blew my mind. And that set up in my mind the idea that we can't judge our parents. We don't know what the hell they go through and what they've been through. So that started the atonement process with my mother and I. And it released from me all the hatred and all the bitterness and all the judgment that I had of my mother. It was released at that time. So my mother, she kept doing what she doing though. She from the streets, you know? And she never stopped smoking the drugs. I left St. Louis, moved to Arizona. And I remember when I moved to Arizona, my mother, she was diagnosed with cancer. And the cancer had spread. And it had metastasized so much where she was defecating blood. And it was all in her breast. She had a tumor on her brain and she was dying. And I got a call from my sister one day. And I was in Arizona. She said, they gave mom 8 weeks to live. I said, oh shit. I had my ex-wife and we had 7 children in the house. We jumped in the van and we hit St. Louis. I didn't even have all the money for gas. I was calling brothers. I'm like, I'm gonna be in New Mexico. They sending me money through MoneyGram at stores on the way. I'm like, I'm finna go to this city. I'm finna go to that city. That's for gas. I'm like, I gotta see mom before she died. And I remember getting down to St. Louis and I sent one of my sons up in that room. And my son walking there, she looking, and she said, that's like one of the red boys. And she said, yo, daddy here. And I walk up and I say, hey, mama, what's going on? And she just hugged me. She was like 80 pounds, soaking wet, real small, frail looking, weak. I never seen that cherry looking like that, so helpless. I started talking to my mother and I started doing like an interview. I say, mama, do you have any regrets in life? If it's anything you wanted to do before you die, what would it be? I'm thinking she's gonna say, I wanna go to Jamaica, I wanna do this. I'm like, we got to make this happen, you know? And she said, no, I ain't got no regrets. She said, yeah, I got one regret. I said, what's that? She said, I want to meet Louis Farrakhan before I die. I said, huh? You want to meet the minister? She said, yeah. I said, why you want to meet the minister? She said, because you was my worst child. You turned out to be my best child. And I want to meet the man that's responsible for that. And that did something for me. Now, my mother, she was resilient. She was in hospice 3 times. That woman came up off hospice. The doctor's like, woman, we don't know how you making it. They gave her 6 weeks to live. She had a strong will. She came by the hospice 3 times when they wrote her off like she was gonna die. She came by the hospice that time. I go back to Arizona a year later. My mother, her and my twin brother still doing what they doing, drugs and things. Police kicked my mama's house in. I tell my mother, I said, mother, why don't you come up to Arizona to see a naturopathic doctor that I had been seeing? Dr. Bettina. I asked her to come see a naturopathic doctor. And she said, I ain't never been on an airplane. My mother was on New Year's. She woke up in St. Louis and went to sleep in Phoenix. It was a New Year's 2009. I flew my mother to Arizona to see a naturopathic doctor because she had been through the chemo, the radiation, and it was killing her. I'm like, at least see this naturopathic doctor, one last hope, I'll pay for it out of my own pocket. She came to see a naturopathic doctor. She was there like 2 weeks, and my ex-wife called me and she said, oh, mom in a lot of pain. And I was out working. I said, I'm on my way, call the ambulance. When I get there, they taking mom out on the stretcher. And we get to the hospital. This a year later, my mother say, damn, I thought I was gonna get to meet Farrakhan before I died. She said, I don't think I'm gonna make it this time, baby. I said, mama, you gonna make it. You a soldier. You strong, mama, you been here before. She said, no, I think I'm gonna make it this time. She said, I thought I was gonna get to meet Farrakhan before I died. Now, she said that the Farrakhan had just came into the city 2 days prior to that. And I said, man, I gotta get my mother to see the minister. So I called one of the minister security, and I told him what my mother said, because when I was interviewing her in St. Louis, she said this to me. She said that if I die before I meet the minister, if he can stand over my grave, I can feel his spirit. She said, or if I can get close to him and touch the hem of his garment. And I told the security everything my mother had said. He said, bro, that's a compelling story. I'm gonna give you Minister Farrakhan's son number, Joshua Farrakhan. Call him and tell him what you just told me. I called Brother Joshua Farrakhan and I told him my mother's story and that she wanted her last wish before she died was to meet the minister. He said, brother, put that in a letter and go take it over to the house and give it to the minister's secretary. It was on a Friday. I gave the letter to the minister's secretary. Saturday morning, I get a call from the secretary saying, Assalamu alaikum. This is Sister Kim, the minister Farrakhan, the executive secretary. The minister want to honor your wish and come to your home. What's your address? I'm like, the minister finna come to my house? Like Farrakhan? I'm like blown away. He like bigger than life to me. Like he be with kings and queens and rulers and presidents and stuff. You gonna come see me? And then I say, well, my mother wanted to come over there to the house to where he was at. We call it the National House in Phoenix, Arizona. And the minister was like, can she walk? Is she okay? I'm like, yeah, she can walk. I can hold her up. So he said, tell me come over here to the next day, Sunday, at 12:30. So we go over to the house, and I'll never forget this time. When we was at the house, Minister Farrakhan's wife walked down, Mother Khadijah, give my mother a kiss on the lips and hug her and say, sister, we praying for you, and we pray that God bless you to get through this. And then the minister and his son walk into the room, and he started praying with my mother, and he said some beautiful things to my mother. Now, interesting enough, my mother, she tell my ex-wife, she say, I can't go meet Farrakhan any kind of way. She said, I gotta look like a black queen when I meet the minister. So can you give me one of them pretty Muslim outfits that y'all be wearing? So she had her hair wrapped up. The only time in her life she wore like a cultural outfit was when she went to see the minister. She wanted to look a certain way when she go see the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And so she did. And I'll never forget, on our way out, I looked at the man and said, man, I love you. He said, I love you more. And I'm thinking to myself like, damn, this man sit with kings and rulers and he took time out for a crackhead and an ex-con. That was a very humbling experience for me to be able to experience that with the minister, writing the minister a letter. And so then my mother, she couldn't leave the street life alone. I mean, my mother, true to dope fiends, she was in Arizona. I've been there for a couple of years at that point. I didn't know who the drug man was. She was there a couple of weeks and found out who the crack man was. So she done found a local crack dealer and everything, and she doing that thing. I said, Mama, you can't do that in my house. I don't play that. I got children around and this and that. So she couldn't really handle the discipline structure of my home. She wound up going back to St. Louis. And when she went back to St. Louis, quiet enough, she told me, she called me. She was semi-illiterate. She said, Red, you ain't gonna believe this. I said, what? She said, my cancer went in readmission. I said, your cancer went in what? She said, readmission. I say, man, she said the tumor on my brain is gone. She said, they say ain't no cancer in my body at all. I'm free of cancer. I say, man, God is real, you know? And she was so excited, but she couldn't leave that drug life alone. She couldn't leave the alcohol alone. She couldn't leave that street life alone. So a few years later, she lived an additional 7 more years. My mother lived 7 more years. And it's oddly enough that when she was dying, this time for real, she had got real sick. And I looked at my ex, I said, I gotta go see Mom one day. She said, well, everything good? I said, I just gotta go see it. It was strong in me. The feeling was strong that I gotta go see my mother. I flew to St. Louis, didn't tell nobody I was coming. No, my family didn't know, my mother didn't know I was coming. I just flew down there, left the airport, and went straight to where my mother was at. And she was little, can barely eat. I talked to her, she was happy to see me. You know, some of her last meal, the last meal she had in her life, I provided for her. When I got back to Arizona, 2 days later, my sister called me and said, Mom just died. And I said, damn. And I was there for 4 days before she died, and I realized that her spirit was calling out for me. Like early on, I called out for my mother, and she wasn't there, you know, because she was struggling with drug addiction. But at the end of her life, she was calling, she wanted to see her son one more time. And she didn't call me on the phone. I felt it in my soul. And it was at that point that I realized that love, void of judgment, connects human souls. So me and my mother, we was connected because I loved her and I no longer judged her. And it created a spiritual connection where I felt her pain, I felt her suffering, and I wanted to be there to support her. And it made me realize again that we ain't qualified to judge our parents or nobody else. We don't know what they're going through, what they've been through. And that's my story. Thank you.